Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Welcome Back to America, our second episode of our third season. We've got a lot tonight. We're going to England tonight. We're going to South End, and we're going to Nottingham. Our crack research team, Millie Micheals, did some crack research and found out a lot of great information about both those towns. Look forward to that. And then we have interviews with Ashley Edwards, who's currently in the South End, but is from Nottingham. And we got JD Fitzpatrick, who is all the way from South End and sounds like one of the Beatles. And that's good. So, Millie, how are you doing today? Great.
I am doing great, Dan. How are you?
Great. We're not in the studio today because there's a storm going down. There's a mini nor'easter happening outside our homes. So we didn't want to take the chance of, accidents. Yeah, there's no reason to go out there if we don't have to. Love going in the studio. Look forward to going back next week. But this episode, we'll stay at home because of that. But that didn't keep us from doing our show. So, Millie, what do we have going on?
Well, we're talking about the UK. We're talking about South End on the Sea, which they refer to as South End. 40 miles from London, and Nottingham is straight up from London, not that far also. We're talking about South End. It's a seaside resort. You can do next picture. There it is. It's very busy. A lot of beach. They have a huge amusement park and aquarium, and they have the longest pleasure pier. 1.3 miles it is from the seashore, and you have to pay to go on it because they use that money to help repair it since it is 1.3 miles long. And to get on it, you have to go through the amusement park. Next picture. Let's first show this is crazy. This is how long it is.
That actually looks like a crane.
It does.
Like a crane.
I would hate to have docked all the way at the end of that and have to go back and forth with my cooler.
I hate to forget my wallet back at my car and be like halfway and be like, oh.
Oh, exactly. And then they're going to charge you another $1. Yes, definitely.
Try to convince the guy, look, I'm just doing this for my family, but they're like, no.
Now, Dan, we have a lot of naked news. I don't know why, but it worked out this way. In South End, they hold the World Naked Bike Ride, which happens throughout the world. It was started back in 2002 to promote cycling, road safety, and pollution. But what happened was at larger naked bike ride events, they're allowed to use skates and scooters, which I think, next picture, I think it's too much out there. This is one event I would like to miss. I do not want to see it.
I'm only 44, and I'm worried about hurting myself.
Well, that's why they should have little mini helmets for different areas of the body.
That would be adorable.
I think so. You could probably find a Barbie helmet. This is the amusement park where they hold the world record on a single coaster. 102 naked people rode the coaster in the chilly seaside weather, and they rode on the what is it called? The Green Scream Coaster.
Oh, I guess it's called green because of the vomit.
Yeah.
Is the roller coaster one of the ones where you're like dangling?
No, because that would hurt somebody.
That would hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, that would hurt a lot of black eyes and whatever else. I don't know. Yeah. In South End, there was an explosion of popularity of cold water swimming. Yeah. They have members of 650 since the lockdown. Everybody's getting into the water. In 2014, back in the day, an informal cold swimming group named the Blue Tits. I know. They have 6,000 members who go into the water. So, that might be 12,000 blue tits. I don't know. All I want to say is that that's a lot of shades of blue. Yeah. And I would not go in that water swimming cold.
Blue Tits, they're also a biker gang, which I found very interesting.
I know that we have something here, blue balls. or something. That's a group.
Yeah, that happens a lot too. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but yeah, that happens a lot.
I would think that happens when you go in cold water. There is a psychic that reads the future by throwing asparagus up in the air, and like it lands. So she just read that. It came up like an H. So she feels like that's Prince Harry is going back to the UK without wife Meghan Markle because no M appeared. I mean, really, she should have looked at the asparagus a little bit better. I'm sure an M appeared.
Well, no, he's actually going to visit. He is visiting on his own without Meghan. So that did.
So maybe that's true.
Yeah, I think it is true. Asparagus is an asparamus.
Yes. Oh, this is Hissing Sid.
Hissing Sid?
Yeah, he's been abusing people. The council actually had a vote and took him out of the public waterways because first he capsized a young lady's canoe, and then he almost drowned another child. I mean, should he still be walking around, or shouldn't he be on a platter with orange marmalade and a sprig of parsley? I mean, why does he get to live? I don't get that.
I don't know. I'm not really into eating swan, but he does look like an a-hole. Like, look at that.
He does.
Just not all birds convey that. But that one does.
Yeah, he needs a cigarette in his hand. Hey, so this guy, he's a dog trainer in the South End, and he's gotten 1 million fans now on TikTok because he's been showing his tricks and kicks and whatever else he's showing. And but the whole thing is he's upset. He's stressed out, pressure. When he wakes up in the morning, there's 99 plus messages for him, and he doesn't like it. You know, so he's so popular. So you get the ambulance. Really?
It's not. I mean, it must be hard because they don't have opposable thumbs. So, you know. Dogs can't really text message. It's not easy.
It's not dogs text messaging. It's the people. But he's stressed. Look at this next picture. He's so stressed. Really? He's not looking stressed to me.
He's taking Tai Chi. These dogs are taking Tai Chi with a human.
Yeah. It's like, I'm sorry. Stick all the money in your mouth. I don't know what this is.
What's this?
Back in 1665, this was a 76-gun ship that actually blew itself up. And no one knew where it was until it came up in 2005. It is known as the best preserved shipwreck.
Oh, wow. It's in South End.
It's baffling how many things come up on shore in the South End. Amazing, all the things I saw. But this one I thought was interesting.
This picture looks like an old shoe.
Yeah, it looks like many things, I feel. A fossil. But you know what else comes up on the shores are these World War II bombs.
Right.
Unexploded bombs. I thought we had a problem with, needles washing up in crack pipes. I mean, I'd rather have that than a bomb.
What we do have a problem with is phallic symbols on that show. That's for sure.
Yes, we do. I have to say that from Utah.
This is the countryside. Our audience may not be able to see it very well, but this is a painting.
This is Nottingham. This is a painting of Nottingham. I thought it was very pretty. Nottingham is home of Sherwood Forest, which is gorgeous. I could never walk there because I can't. I trip on sidewalks. I could never.
Yeah, that would be slippery. That moss.
That moss is slippy.
Slippery. The coat of arms is not a coat of arms.
Yes, it used to be people, but now they have these Vogue type of deer. Like they look like they're having fun.
They look coy. Like,
good things are happening.
Yeah, they're happening.
So yeah, do you know Nottingham used to be ruled by a Saxon chief, Snot. That was his name. So it used to be called Snottingham.
That's it.
And it was the homestead of the Snots people.
I know this is true, and I wonder if that's where the idea of wearing snot is. Someone wanted to get back at the family for some reason.
Well, Snotigus means cave. It's caves.
Oh, okay.
So I would think, but I wouldn't. Yeah, okay. You can look it up. It's very interesting.
And of course, who could talk about Nottingham without talking about Robin Hood?
Robin Hood.
One of the most well-known folklore characters throughout history.
Yes. Is he real or not? Nobody knows.
Nobody really knows.
A folklore is when people. I'm sorry, Dan. Folklore is when people gossip or pass a story down to each other, kind of like telephone. So we know how that goes.
What's this picture here? This is
a statue of Robin Hood. Yeah. And he was an archer. He used to steal from the rich and give to the poor. And this is also another folklore in Europe. This is Little Red Riding Hood. I feel maybe the wolf was maybe a step-grandfather. And this is a fairy that people are not sure, again, if it's true or false, if it's real or not. It's up to you. Everybody, we have Sleepy Hollow here. We have different folklores.
And my favorite thing about Robin Hood is Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn. Look at Maid Marian. I think she has rollers under that hat.
She's
happy because she's about to get a comb out.
She's happy because all the rich are getting robbed and Murray's being given the floor.
Yeah, that's so nice. Oh, and this I would never think that Robin Hood was in the Southwest.
No, it's not. I mean, because of this, I'm imagining like a futuristic Robin Hood that takes place in the future, where he's like, he doesn't rob money, he robs air or like water so that people can drink.
Wow, that's very interesting, Dan.
It's another favorite Robin Hood.
Yeah. You love this one.
Yep, Robin Hood and Little John.
Disney. Look how cute. Everybody looks at Maid Marian again with the hairdo. She's probably
my first experience with Robin Hood and the idea of Nottingham and the sheriff of Nottingham and all that.
Yeah. Did you steal from the rich?
No, I'd never seen.
Oh, this is Kevin Costner before Dances with Wolves.
Of course, that's Kevin Costner, the California Robin Hood.
Yes, he's shooting Tonka, which is buffalo.
And this is
This is Margot Robbie, whatever way you would like to say. She played Maid Marian, and she plays Maid Marian after Robin Hood gets killed or dies or whatever happens to him. And then she goes around and steals from the rich and gives to herself.
Yeah.
Or to the poor, because she likes shoes.
Right, it would be funny if she just steals the money and buys shoes and hats.
Yeah, she does. She's like, I'm poor, it's me, I get it. So I don't blame her. So, and then what's this?
It's the Sheriff of Nottingham in Men in Tights.
We are men, we're wearing tights.
And I'll have you know that I sent in a resume to be the Sheriff of Nottingham when I lived in England in 1998, and I didn't get the job.
Why do you think you didn't?
I think it was racism. So,
in what way, Dan?
Thanks for joining us on Welcome Back to America today. Millie, you did so much work on that. I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot.
So interesting. I have so much more information now that I can always think about.
And maybe the Queen will come back in a couple of weeks. You might see the Queen in a couple of weeks because we have Jordan Gray coming on.
Oh, boy.
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be great.
But thanks for checking out Welcome Back to America. And we got Ashley Edwards and JD Fitzpatrick coming in from the South End and Nottingham, so stay tuned for those interviews.
Yes.
Be right back after this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Welcome Back to America. I am D.B. Frick, and I have with me someone tonight who's really interesting. I love this guy's background. He's got a few things going on. He's a writer. He's an improviser, which is where I met him recently. And he's also a wrestler and is a big fan of wrestling, as you can see by the many artifacts behind him. Ladies and gentlemen, JD Fitzpatrick. Thank you for coming down to the show.
No problem, DB. Thanks for having me. Yeah, as you say, I'm big wrestling fan. I don't know what gives it away.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what would make me fan. I'm a big wrestling fan too. We're definitely gonna touch on that as we get into this interview here. But first, I'd like to get into, what was it that first made you want to get on stage? Was it someone that pushed you? Is it someone or something you saw? What was it that made you want that kind of attention?
I mean, there was a lot of things, really. I know, like, my dad was always in bands, like, he's a musician, so I'd see him on stage doing that, and that would, I'd wanted to pursue music for a little bit, and I was in a band very briefly back in school, but it was, we were just a school band. We didn't really do much, and it was quite late on that I got into wanting to actually be on stage, because I just had a few jobs, and I was just like, acting was always a passion of mine when I was very, very young. I always wanted to be an actor and be in movies and stuff like that. And I had this revelation where I was just like, I'm old enough now where I think I can go and pursue this and actually write things and act and be on stage.
I love that. Do you remember the first thing that got you on stage? Do you remember the first time you were on stage in front of an audience performing in something?
It was in my primary school, so elementary school, I think it would be to you. It was I think it was some Egyptian based play. I can't fully remember, but I'd always have these roles at school where they'd pick me out for the character, like the big sort of over the top comedy type roles, and I played a fake German who played a mouse organ for this wacky variety show that they did. So that was sort of the earliest, I think, that I remember.
That sounds interesting. Were you working on anything before the pandemic started? Any stage work?
Well, funnily enough, I was just finishing my university degree. Right as the pandemic hit, I was in my last year, and we were doing our final big unit, and it was a play that we had to adapt ourselves from scratch. So it was like completely had to do everything, the lighting, the set design. And I was one of the writers, and we'd adapted Alice in Wonderland to sort of bring it more up to date and add some weird little zany things here and there. And we were the show week of that show. It was all set to go on stage, and we got told the pandemic has closed the university. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cancel.
So you're not even doing online? That school's not even doing online courses?
The degree. Yeah, I finished my degree online, but obviously we didn't get to do any of the shows.
Right.
So it was a little bit of a downer, but at the same time, I did okay. I did good going online. So I mean, obviously, I'd have preferred.
I would imagine that you would. You seem to have a big fan. You're a big fan of wrestling. You have a lot of wrestling paraphernalia behind you. What got you into wrestling?
Oh, again, my mum and dad were big influences. Like they always watched it, so I sort of grew up with it on. And I went to a local show in 2011, 2012, and a couple of my friends were wrestling on the show, and they were like, "Oh, well, we've got the training school here as well. You should come down and do that." And I'm like, I'm really clumsy. Like, I'm a naturally clumsy person. So I thought, well, I'll go. I'll give it a go. And I never looked back since then. And I was just sort of 2012 was my first training session. And I think it was maybe 7 or 8 months. And then I made my debut on a show.
Do you know how many matches you have under your belt?
Oh, no, I really regret not counting them off. It's not a huge amount because it was never like, I never made it my primary thing to focus on. It was always something I'd do on the weekends here and there. But I'd say over 40, 50 matches at least.
That's great. How many of them did you win?
Not many. I was a bit of a jobber. I was like a bit of a sort of I was a comedy guy. Like, I was big because nobody was doing that at the time. Like, in the company where I was training, nobody was being comedy, doing like that sort of stuff. So I found a niche, and I dove headfirst into it.
So what was the character? Assuming you created a character, what was the character?
Yeah. Well, I went by JD Boom. That was my wrestling moniker, and he was just a big crybaby. I had the only facial hair I had was a mustache. So I really played on that, and I was the master of the mustache to piece. And I used to have these little mustaches that I'd made out of felt, and I'd throw them at my opponent just to no effect, and just like I'd throw them, and I'd be pew pew pew, and there'd just be that silence, and I'd just get popped in the face. It was brilliant.
Have you watched the show Glow at all? It was
Yes, I love Glow. Fantastic show.
I got to watch the first season of it, and it was very funny. I actually used to watch Glow when I was a kid in the 80s.
Yeah.
I would watch it, and it was a very interesting experience. It was probably the closest thing to porn that I saw up to that point. But I probably saw Glow wrestling before I saw WWF wrestling at the time. And I think it was the first match that I saw was King Kong Bundy. And it was his short. It was the short. I think it's still the record for the shortest match. It was about 23 seconds long. It was just him going. He just fell on the guy. He obviously wanted to get out of the ring that day. He had a meeting he had to get to or something. I don't know. But that was my first, and I was kind of hooked on that. And then ended up writing for a cartoon called Smarks for a little while, and that's actually coming back. I would love to. That was supposed to go on TV, but never really got picked up. But the producer is trying to do something with it still. But Smarks is a wrestling term, right?
Yeah, smart marks. Yeah, the fans who know too much about the business, I think, is
right. And there is definitely exists. I have a couple of sort of different questions that go off into another realm. If you could have one superhero power, what would that superhero power be?
To stop time, I think. I was going to go for invisibility, but I really would like to stop time, because I used to watch this. There was a show like back in England years ago when I was growing up, and it was called The Queen's Nose. And it was about a group of kids who had a little 50-pence piece, and they'd rub the Queen's nose and be able to pause time. And that sort of stuck with me. So that was always something that was in my head of, I really wish I could do that. I really wish I could pause time.
Did that always get them in trouble?
Yeah, they'd do it, and then they'd mess something up, and then have to pause time to get out of trouble. And
I've always liked time travel concepts. Doctor Who, that kind of stuff, and English comedy has always been prevalent in my life. I mean, I can't even remember a time that I didn't watch or listen to English comedy. What were some of your influences in England and elsewhere? What other Western influences, or Eastern, if there were?
I think in terms of sort of British sitcoms, I like a lot of the slapstick stuff. Some of us do have them. That for me is I can watch that and just die laughing every single time. It's that the goofball sort of Naked Gun-esque humor.
Love that.
I think it's because I know a lot of people give it, like, a lot of people sort of put it down, but I think it's really, really clever to make it that funny and not be, too. It's like a fine line between it being unfunny and still that goofball sort of stuff, and then the really clever things that they do in Naked Gun, Police Squad as well. I rewatched all of those recently.
The thing about that go on. I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, Fawlty Towers is another one. I think John Cleese in that and all of the Monty Python stuff as well. I think is hilarious.
I just recently watched a Monty Python documentary, 6-parter. That was just, I got to see them live the last time that they would ever perform. When I was living in 2014, when I was at Cambridge, they did a show at the O, and it was my only day off. And I go to London, and with this idea that I'm either going to go see a show on the West End or I'm going to see Monty Python if I can get a ticket. So I go to the O hoping that someone's scalping tickets. I see a lot of people scalping tickets, but for like way too much, like 200, 300 pounds for a ticket. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that until eventually, right before the show's going to start, there's one guy who has like 1,000 tickets and he can't sell any of them. So he wants to sell it for any price. So I'm like, I'll give you 60 pounds for a ticket. And I end up sitting in this section all by myself. Like the whole place is full. And then this one other British chick comes over, and she had bought a ticket from the guy too. We ended up singing all the songs. It was one of the greatest nights of my life. So Monty Python has always had a big influence on me. I shouldn't be talking about me. We should be talking about you. If you were on the run and you had a bag of money, where would you hide that bag of money, and where would you hide yourself?
I'd hide them. I'd get a suitcase. I'd hide the money in the lining of the suitcase. And I'd get multiple disguises. I think I'd have a different disguise every day.
Nice.
Yeah.
You've obviously thought about this.
Well, you can never be too sure. You got to be prepared for anything, especially these days.
Of course. Now we met doing extreme improv, which is out of the UK. David Riley Pustansky runs that. And it's a great experience. How did you get connected to that group?
I'm in another Facebook group called UK Actors, just to sort of keep abreast of anything going on locally and sort of regionally. And somebody had posted about I'd like to get into doing improv classes. And David had said, oh, well, I'm part of this group. We do weekly shows. So I just messaged him. I was just like, look, it's something I'd really like to sort of get involved with. I've not done much, but I've always wanted to. And sort of, again, not look back since then.
Yeah, it's been, I think I started doing it probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
They've been, it's been fun ever since.
Oh, yeah, it's been brilliant. Brilliant set of people. Everyone's, it's been such a welcoming sort of thing, and I think it has to be doing it online and making that sort of transition.
Now we can go back to wrestling for a second. Yeah. Vince McMahon's been in the news a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I'm not sure why, because I haven't read the articles.
He has sold the WWE Network in America. Now you can only get it if you subscribe to Peacock TV, I think it is.
NBC.
Yeah, so he sold it for $1 billion, the rights. So he's making, and apparently they've been making the most money they've ever made during this, like, not having a crowd has made them more money than having a crowd.
Yeah, I guess that would work with wrestling as opposed to other things. Like, I don't think boxing would do better, but wrestling could. Is there a British wrestling organization? Is there like the WWE? Does WWE come out there?
Yeah, they do, but there's sort of been a big sort of like an increase in sort of British wrestling things. There's no one set promotion because now they've got NXT UK where they basically poach all the good British talent and bring them over there to sign them to a contract. So there's no real like huge promotion in England these days. It's more sort of just local. Like you have like the sort of London-based ones, and there's a lot. There is a lot, but
and maybe you'll be able to think of it. Maybe you'll be able to think of the name. But I'm thinking in terms of like wrestling in the 1950s and 60s. There was a British guy called the Englishman, and I forgot his whole name and his whole thing, but he was a wrestler. His whole thing was being out of England, but it was the 50s and 60s. And I thought maybe it was just something that came to mind right now, but maybe it doesn't actually exist and it's just in my head.
Well, maybe you're onto something there. You've invented this new character there.
Now in our last 5 minutes of chat, what are some of the things that you're working on or working towards right now?
Well, I've recently started a podcast, which has always been a sort of dream of mine to do that. So I'm, recording that every week. That's streaming on Spotify and Podbean at the moment.
Nice.
So that's fun. I'm always,
What's
always
the theme? What do you guys?
Nothing. There's no thing. Just talk about whatever we want. I think the first episode was a sort of countdown of like top cartoons. Second episode, we talked a lot about movies. We recast a lot of films. We heavily talk about Nicolas Cage. That's a big topic of conversation. Just anything and everything, really, is sort of the sort of motto of the podcast.
Sort of on the same. What are some of, and we're getting into it before, but what are some of the American influences that you, as far as comedically goes?
I mean, my favorite TV show is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, so smart.
I wrote my dissertation for university on that program, and I got I'm going to toot my own horn here. I got an insanely high grade for that. So that's a big influence for me.
You should send that to the producers of that show. You should write a letter and let them know and send them. I think they would probably be interested in reading something like that.
Yeah, I might do that. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
It's not like I know them. I don't know them, but I know they.
I thought you were my in there.
Right. I've always wanted to write for a show like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love the comedy of it. It's coming back too.
Yes, obviously The Office, like The Office is I mean, it's better than the UK version, without a doubt.
I'm quite partial to Ricky Gervais.
I like Ricky Gervais, but I think I really have to sort of sit down, and it's an effort to me to watch the UK Office, whereas the US one I can put on and I'm there with it. You know what I mean?
The characters might have been quirkier.
Yeah.
In the English version, in the American version, they're both in English. Those are all great shows. I'm a big fan of those. If people want to go see you, where are some of the places that they can go online? Give some of those websites and tags and.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to follow the podcast on the socials, we're on Twitter at Talking Loud Pod and on Instagram at Talking Loud Podcast. I myself am on Twitter at J_Dakota4 as well. So I'm no big sort of, I've not got no shows coming up at the moment, but I'm keeping active with the podcasting stuff. So that's the main sort of outlet for me at the moment. And I'm writing things. I like adapting like films onto the stage. One of my proudest achievements, I adapted Clerks onto the stage, which was insanely I enjoyed that so much, because ever since I was from first seeing the film, I thought this would work on stage. It's one location,
makes sense,
and I adapted it. Nobody who was in the show had ever seen the film, so I sat them down. I was like, right, your homework now is to watch Clerks. That's the first thing before I even give you the script. And we did it in 2 weeks. We got the set sorted, the props, costume, everyone off book. In 2 weeks we did it, and it was such an amazing experience.
Wow. Did you get to let Kevin Smith know on any level about this?
I'd messaged him but didn't sort of receive anything back. But I mean, I played Silent Bob as well, because I did the Kevin Smith thing of putting myself in there as that role. So
that's a good idea. Many actors would do that. What's his name? Even Alfred Hitchcock put himself in every movie that he ever did. JD, thank you so much for coming down today and having this chat. I look forward to getting to know you in the coming months and years and shows. We'll probably be on a show in the next couple of weeks. And it's been great having you. Thanks for coming down. And we will be back with Welcome Back to America right after this. everybody. It's DB Frick here. Welcome back to America with DB Frick and the Not Quite Ready for Jihad players. They're not here right now, but I do have someone who is here right now. Very funny guy that I've met in the last couple of months doing some comedy online through England. He's over there in Nottingham, which I've actually been to, and I have an anecdote about that. Ashley Edwards, he's a stand-up comedian. He's an improviser. He also works for the NHS, the National Health Service, and he's also the chair of the LGBT plus Q plus network. I'm sure I said that wrong. As we discussed beforehand, I am a dyslexic. So, Ashley Edwards, the very funny, incomparable Ashley Edwards. How you doing?
I'm really, really good. Thank you very much indeed. I think you did beautifully in that introduction. I have to tell you that I'm not actually in Nottingham at the moment, and I don't want people out there to think that I'm a liar. I'm from Nottingham. I used to live in Nottingham a long time. I'm down south in South End where they can't get me.
The zombies, so to speak, can't get you?
Yeah, and that's more of a cognitive thing rather than a mythological thing.
It's all funny. People. I'm sure working in the national health system anywhere, you would deal with a lot of stupid all the time. Not just clients, just the red tape and everything. I'm sure it would absolutely. I have seen some weird and wonderful stuff. Speaking of weird and wonderful stuff, you are a performer. And one of the things I like to get into right away with my interviews is I like to know what got them on stage, what made them want to get in front of people and talk and be funny. Well, mostly alcohol and money, but actually no, because you rarely get either. Genuinely, it's just a thirst for attention and my ego to be massaged. I feel like it's all a little bit masturbatory doing stand-up. I used to think. But actually, I genuinely feel no more joy than when I make somebody laugh. Whether or not it's at my own expense or not, I just like making people laugh a lot. And initially, I found I made more people laugh doing improv, doing funny voices, doing funny accents, doing funny characters for a bit, like Whose Lines It Anyway? But then I thought I want to be able to present these shows sometimes, and that means you have to command an audience for a bit. I dabbled in stand-up before to varying successes. And then I thought, no, I'm going to proper crack into this. And then I went to a class. I went to an actual how to be funny on stage class. Is that what it was called? Is that what it was called? How to be funny on stage? Is that how the class was called? I'm going to say yes, it wasn't. My first ever stand-up show that I was in was called Don't Be a Dickhead. I can't remember the class. It was very, very good though, and it helped me rewrite my set and actually make ideas back. And also touched on how to write comedy in different parts of the world. That is a very important thing right now, especially as I think comedy, worldly comedy, will become more popular and people working together across various different. I mean, all over the world. I've met so many people in Europe now, even though I've lived in England twice. I've met so many people in the last 6 months just doing all the extreme improv stuff, which is where we met. Absolutely. I think you're quite right as well, because Joe Biden in his inaugural speech talked about stand-up comedy needing to have unity across the Atlantic. And he mentioned you. He did. Well, I didn't want him to, but he did. And actually the bird that was on Lady Gaga's big brooch, which actually was for me because I'm a great tit. I imagine. I've heard that about you. That is the rumor. Yeah. Now, you're not in Nottingham right now, but you spent a lot of time in Nottingham. Are you from Nottingham originally? Yes, born, bred, raised, and it's why you may not be able to hear it with your American ears, but it's why I have this accent as opposed to the usual London accent or Dick Van Dyke's failed attempts. It's classier. It's a classier accent. It's a caste system above the others. Well, actually, in England, my accent is deemed to be lower class. But I think outside of the country, and I also think sometimes in the country as well, there's been studies, but the northern accent seems a little bit friendlier because you come across a bit more of a simpleton rather than an intelligent villain. Which we just got a villain out of the office. I don't know if you know that. Yes, and he has a southern Cockney accent. I'm not sure what his voice is or his beady little eyes. But we're not going to talk about him right now. No. If you could have one superhero power, if you could to either change the world or change yourself or get something, visibility, things of that nature, what would you do?
It's really difficult because my friend Georgian Gray, me and her talk about, she's really into talk about superpowers. And the one thing that I often hear people answer is fly, but that's stupid because you'd have to wear goggles and keep your mouth shut because you get bugs in your face. And they don't cover that in the Marvel films. And I really wish they did. Like I really do with that being covered. And like this thing about talking to animals, but what if the animals don't like you? And like
it's really funny.
They're just really stupid powers. I did think to myself, do you know what? I want to be able to I'm not going to want to change the world because there's too many ramifications on that. And I don't want a James Cameron film making about it. I think I would like to be able to cure my hangovers because now that I'm getting older, they're lasting a lot longer. But then I realised that would probably make me an awful drunk. So I think genuinely, and this is a bit wanky actually, I'm really sorry, but I think I would actually have to say I'd like to be like the Rosetta Stone and be able to speak any language and understand any language.
Sure, I like that. That would be very helpful. I've always wanted to speak another language, and I don't. I hardly speak English.
Well, you're American, so yeah.
Yeah, we are last on the totem pole of sort of that kind of, nobody learns another language. We learned Spanish. I took 8 years of Spanish. I know,
wow.
I know how to say me limpio los dientes, which means I brush my teeth. And I do.
It sounded beautiful. You sound like a native to wherever the hell you were trying to be from.
Like you probably speak a little French or German. My guess.
So we took French and German in secondary school, and I carried on German to A level. But at the moment, I'm learning Greek.
Okay. Take on a language during the pandemic. Did you take on Greek during the pandemic?
I did, because I had a Greek housemate, and as soon as I messaged him for some reason, because he moved back to Greece, messaged him, was like, hey, Thomas Kandarakis, just so you know, I'm learning Greek at the moment, and I started messaging him in Greek, and he's now moved out.
Yeah, you could live on like $10,000 in Greece right now for the rest of your life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I buy a packet of crisps here when I could be getting a mortgage in Greece. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. But yeah, he promptly moved out, and so now effectively I'm learning Greek for no reason.
You also mentioned that you are the chair of the LGBT plus Q plus network. I'm saying that right?
LGBTQ plus network, indeed. So it represents staff and patients within the NHS in Essex, where I am at the moment. And our goal is just to make sure that there's equal opportunities for everybody. We're not trying to be better. We're not militant. But it's looking at things like, 'cause I used to be a transgender voice therapist, and I used to help people achieve their target voice sound. If you're transitioning from a biological male to female gender, the hormones and surgeries don't change your voice quality. So you have to have therapy to change it.
Wow.
Like, think of Laverne Cox. You would never, her voice is so feminine. And so it's kind of like doing that work. Did that, and still today in 2021, the inequalities in the NHS for people who are transgender is shocking. So I do work on that, and I really enjoy it. I also quite like, we do a very, very no holds barred Mythbusters training, which is quite new. It's quite unique in our NHS, really, where we disbar all these myths and what you can and can't say to gay people. Like, the first question shouldn't be, what's your favorite Whitney Houston album? That should be
right.
I mean, yeah.
But what is? Seriously.
Oh, the best of. Okay. I'm a really underachieving homosexual. Like, I need to be better at it. I don't know what Venetian blinds are. I don't know why Celine Dion looks like a horse, and I don't like clothes shopping. People say, oh, you could be my gay best friend, but I'm shit at it.
But you're wearing a really smart sweater there. You know how to shop.
Somebody bought me this.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
I go into Primark or Primarché, which is kind of like a Macy's or whatever. My lazy eye hits the dummy, and I'm just like, I'm just going to find that and get that, because that works. I'm wholly incompetent.
I like shopping. I actually like shopping with ex-girlfriends too. I've often been that guy who, it's like, hey, you think, why don't you try this on? It's an interesting dynamic.
Oh no, hold on. Do you mean you shop with them when they were your girlfriends?
Yes, at the time, yes.
So you didn't actually go hunt down your exes and tell them what to wear?
I did that too, but that's a different story. I did that too. This. So, what are you guys working on right now? As chair of that department, what do you put together?
Well, thank you. The training was a big one. One of the big things we did, doesn't seem like a big deal, but in this country it is, because obviously in the NHS, it's not like America where you've got your lovely, really friendly humanitarian private companies insurance debacle. We have limited money and it's taxpayers' money. But I wanted to get rainbow lanyards because it's quite nice for people to be able to wear these with pride, and any patient or staff member that joins can see that there are open advocates, like allies, friends, members of the community are proud to wear the rainbow colours. And with the COVID pandemic, people in like America and the UK noticed, but they're using the rainbow to say, well done, carers, you're doing a smashing job. I am still going to lick all my friends and family and get COVID, but you're doing a great job. That was happening with all the rainbows everywhere, and clapped for the carers and stuff. And I realised that our LGBTQ plus flag was being used for it, including the government. They'd used the LGBTQ plus flag with a long history and a design concept, and they were just putting a heart on it and NHS on it. And so suddenly we felt like our thing, although it's a lovely cause, you were taking away our stuff. So my thing was that I wanted to kind of like retrieve that back, please. And have it on a lanyard, and that's how I justified getting the money for it. And boom.
It seems like something that would lead to politics for you, and you seem to have a political mind, and you have an interest in politics. So,
yes,
is that something you?
No, I'm too honest. I'm too honest. My skeletons in my closet are so obscene. It would put Boris Johnson. Well, not quite Boris Johnson. I know how many children I have.
Do you have children?
Not that I'm aware of, which is what straight men say, like not that I'm aware of, just so people know that they have had sex. Oh, I have had sex. I don't know if I've got any kids. Okay, just them telling you they're not a virgin. I get it. No, I don't. I have not got children. But even now, I feel the need to say that I know of. I don't. But if you go on Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister for England, you go on his Wikipedia, and it says children on the little bio bit. It says 5 or 6.
That's strange.
Genuinely, and
right.
He's asked several times at press conference how many kids he's got, and he's always refused to answer because he doesn't know. And the COVID rules are so complicated in the UK, whether it's 6 or 7 or 5 or 4 people, because Boris is still trying to work out how many kids he's got and how many he can have around for Christmas.
Imagine that man on top of you, or on the back of you.
I'm so flaccid, it's almost back inside myself at this point. I can't. It would kind of like being intimate with a blancmange.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
Like a messy, creamy jelly pudding.
Okay.
It'd be like having intercourse with a cockatiel. A cockatiel that was covered in jam.
Wow. That's
I imagine. Not that I've ever done that.
That's the greatest visual ever. I always found it very interesting that him and Donald Trump had such physical similarities.
Absolutely. They both look like the front half of a centaur. They both look like they've put their head on a haystack is on their head, and one of them's combed it and the other one hasn't. The reason that the fake tan doesn't stick to Boris is because his skin is so oily because of, I assume, all the inbreeding. So it's funny because I think, weirdly enough, like Boris is a diet Donald Trump in the cognitively as well. I mean, they both got COVID. They're both horrific. They're both womanizers. I mean, Boris Johnson, we don't talk about this enough. Boris Johnson cheated on his dying wife. No, did she have cancer? Yes. And with a pregnant, it was a whole thing. He's bad. And so I think he's like a diet Trump because also he doesn't have the cognitive ability to be as openly fascist as Trump is. But he has said that all gay men are tank top wearing bum boys, referred to women who wear the hijab as letterboxes, referred to black children on a foreign trip that he did as pickaninnies with watermelon smiles. He wrote that in a paper and still became prime minister of this country.
Oh, yeah. No, if you look at the litany of things that Trump did for 30, 40 years before he was president, it all comes down to, I don't even really try to get into this stuff too much, but there are so many there were 19 sexual assault suits that were being prepared before he became president. But once he became president, it's moot to explore those because you can't arrest a president. Essentially, a president can do whatever they want. And
he also gets away with it because he's gorgeous.
There's someone who said that. Someone said that. Someone said that and meant it. Someone said that about Hitler at some point and meant it too. Like,
well, not the prostitutes, because some prostitutes probably laughed at him when he was younger. Also, I would love, if I had any sort of psychological training, I need to have a day with Melania. I want to know what's happening behind those cold, dead eyes.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, she got in front of COVID before everybody because she's been emotionally isolating for 10 years.
Yeah. She puts all of her effort into her son. I do believe that. I believe that all of her, everything goes towards, like, she never really did anything in the spotlight. And I think she spent all her time raising her teenage boy, who probably never even met Donald.
I'm so mortified. I want to know what the pediatrician thinks of the son, because I bet he's got some problems.
Did you ever hear of those books written by Ingersoll Lockwood, who is an Englishman? He wrote these books at the turn of the century in 1898, and the book is called The Marvelous Adventures of Baron Trump. And there's 3 volumes, and the 3rd volume is called The Last President. And he travels from Moscow to New York and lives on Fifth Avenue.
Sure.
He is introduced and led around by a man named Don Fum, F-U-M.
Sure.
And he runs for president. And the end of the 3rd issue takes place at the Capitol, and it's a siege of the Capitol. This is a book that was actually written. It's real. It was written 123 years ago. You could order it on Amazon. It's out there. Ingersoll Lockwood.
I have an English degree, and I studied literature at that time, 1898 to 1903, in this kind of country. It was called the Fin de siècle, and it was when books became really gothic and sexual and aesthetic and decadent, because people were kind of like, oh my God, I can have sex or something, but I'm so repressed because I'm Victorian. And that's when books started getting really raunchy because somebody flashes an ankle. But we didn't study American literature. We didn't think that those 2 words went together.
They don't really. And I have an English degree. I have 2 useless English degrees, one of which I got in England, one I got at the University of North London. And that's where my master's is from. They don't even exist anymore. They're the Metropolitan University now.
No, after you left, they started antibacterializing it and it melted.
So did my degree. I can't find it anywhere.
I've not heard of it. I'm going to look into those books now. Thank you very much indeed. But if I go and research these books and it comes out with QAnon and Pizzagate, I'm going to kick off.
You're not going to. That's not. Even John Oliver did a story on it. There's been several stories done on it. There's been articles written about it. It is a real thing.
Wow.
And I don't believe in like time travel. I don't believe that someone traveled back in time. And I don't want to believe that, but it's hard not to consider the notion.
I mean, it's hard to believe that it's only The Simpsons that got it right.
Right. 20 times or something?
In a world where several people predicted it. Because even, wasn't it Andy McNabb? Didn't he predict a respiratory pandemic?
Yeah. Someone did.
Someone did.
I know that there's always been, but it'll happen again, too. In like 10 years, there'll probably be another one, I would assume.
Yeah, but I'm hoping, and please, I am sorry, I'm really hoping that the next pandemic is kind of like a pansexual pandemic, and it just lists everybody's sexualities as pan, and so everyone's just banging each other, and all the
orgy,
a little bit camp, or the really feminine danger and get a little bit more gender fluid. It all just gets a bit sloppy and messy.
I would imagine. I don't even like thinking about it. In fact, on that note, we're gonna wrap up.
What?
Yeah, the time flies. We're at about time flies. But Ashley Edwards, it's been a great conversation. You're an incredibly funny man. I'd like to do this again at some point, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about Nottingham as I research over the next week.
I didn't even talk about it once.
We did a little bit. You talked about coming up in comedy over there for a second, but
Sure.
if people want to see you or date you, where do they go?
Okay, you can date me. You can. I'm over the UTI now. It's fine. So it's at Ashley Edwards Comedy on Facebook. I don't ever really update it. I should, but I'm on there. Or you just find me on Facebook. It's all right. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot of stuff with the Extreme Improv group. And then I'm also part of, and we tell these stories about our local improv shows, and you're like, oh yeah, lovely. But you have no intention of going because it's like 100 miles away. But I should admit that I'm lying. But I'm part of a group called the Laughter Academy, and what I like about the Laughter Academy is it's a improv group in a town, a little seaside town that I'm in near London. And what I like about it, and what I want to promote all over the world, is equal opportunities improv groups for amateurs who accepts that anyone in the world can be an improviser. Doesn't matter who you are, what your experience is. We do a 10-week course with experienced people and new people, and at the end of that 10 weeks we put them on a stage to a paying audience. And our thing is, we are going to prove to you that anyone can do improv. And that's what I like, and I think people should get behind it and start getting into that kind of stuff.
I do think that anyone who gets into the arts should start with an improv class. It should be the first class that you take in that realm. Oh, Ashley, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. We will see you again soon. And thank you for checking out Welcome Back to America. I'm D.B. Frick, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Me llaman Dan Pablo y hace más de 20 años me enamoré de una colombiana. Viajé a su país y conocí un estilo de café muy distinto, muy especial. Ahora tostamos cafés excelentes, con alturas y microclimas diferentes, resultado en una taza muy compleja y muy rica. Un sabor nuevo en el mundo. Fue un éxito. And I even got to keep the girl.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this week's show. Great interviews with Ashley Edwards, JD Fitzpatrick, learned a lot about Nottingham, learned a lot about the South End. Next week, we're going to India. We're going to Mumbai, we're going to Sri Lanka, we're going to talk to Kapildev Key and Asad Khan about comedy next week, all the way on the other side. So looking forward to that. Check out Welcome Back to America, Mondays at 10.